MacBook too because this app I got to deploy in the App Store. I just finished setting up Xcode. One thing I want to do is I want to be able to connect my Windows machine to my MacBook machine.
Nice.
So that
So
like,
go ahead.
yeah, so you won't have how can I say it? So while I'm developing on my Windows machine, I could switch between my MacBook, the simulator on the MacBook, and my Windows machine, and keep everything in one spot.
Okay.
So yeah, so I set up so I set it up. I also there's the developer program, right, that I paid for. I'm not sure, right, with the organization that you're working with, you'll probably do development, and then once you're ready to deploy, then it'll probably deploy through the organization's developer account. So that's why I had it set up. So now I have all that set up. It's just working on the rest of the app, this folder app, this app here, and then trying to deploy it there. So waiting to see what that looks like. When setting up Cocoa Pods, right? Wait, no, you're using Swift. Did you ever have to install Cocoa Pods too, or no?
No. So I honestly haven't gotten started with anything yet. What happened was is I have a MacBook that's an older model, and I wasn't able to install Xcode from the App Store. So I contacted Apple about it, and they too couldn't help me. They were saying my computer was too old and that it wasn't like the current operating system wasn't compatible with the newest version of Xcode, and there was no way for me to get Xcode. So literally, the only choice I have is either to find a way to get Xcode or buy a completely new computer, which I didn't want to do because I'm pretty happy with this one. So I actually installed it using my command line, and I installed like an older version of Xcode that's compatible with my operating system. And so that's pretty much it. That's as far as I've gotten. And I clicked around, looked at it, started it up, and I just noticed that Swift looked very similar to JavaScript.
Yeah.
But I haven't installed anything else.
Yeah, I would. Right. Yeah. So yeah, no, I haven't worked with Swift, so that's really good. I was gonna say, yeah. So because right, there's Xcode 15, right? Because like Apple, like they're money hungry. So you have to grab the latest computer. What I've done, I grabbed the latest computer operating system too, and then I also got the M1 chip. Well, not the latest computer. I got a 2020. I got a deal, and but I upgraded to Sonoma, right? And then with Xcode, right? That's Xcode 15.1, right? And then right, so it's just a matter just to see how performant like so you haven't done any work with it, but you would have to see right how it performs right on your computer. Wait, what operating system are you using right now on iOS?
I am Monterey 12.7.4. So my model is a 2016 model. And when I first purchased it for like the first few years of owning this computer, I actually didn't use it very often. So it's kind of almost like a brand new computer. It runs really well, and I have had no problems with it, which is why I don't want to buy a new one. But I too was looking at the 2020 model only because it has the most recent operating system and it's actually compatible. This computer, first, because Apple wants money and they want me to buy the newest computer, this computer that I currently have is not even compatible with the newest Sonoma update. So I can't even update it to that one. I have to just be stuck at Monterey 12.7.4 until they, continue to update. So that's why when it came to Xcode, I wasn't even able to install Xcode and some other apps I can't install But I found a workaway, which is installing it using Xcodes with an S on the command line. And it's like a version manager. So that's how I was able to install Xcode 14.0.1, which is compatible with Monterey 12.7.4. But yeah, I did click around. I was looking at tutorials, and I didn't get any further than that. But I too was thinking of buying the 2020 Mac because it's on sale for $699, which is a pretty good deal. But I don't want to spend money unnecessarily when my computer works perfectly fine, and I don't need two MacBooks. So that's why I just didn't.
Yeah, I was about to like refer you to a store in Canada. They actually reached out, but I think it's going to be the same price. Yeah, all right. So, all right, so very well with that. I think people are starting to join. We also have okay, we have Danielle. Okay, I know Crystal might be joining from the laptop. Danielle, can you hear us?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Well, hey, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. And then I
Hello.
think we have another person joining, Lena. Lena, can you hear us as well?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, thank you. So I'll just go ahead and introduce myself. So my name's Halik. I'm the host here at Virtual Code and Chill. My organization is WindMillCode, and I'm partnered with WBB, We Build Black. So that every week we talk about all things tech, right? Me, I'm a full stack developer. Been in the industry for about 5 years now. Worked in financial industries, financial companies such as PwC, Wells Fargo, and now I have my own business. Right now, I'm working on a video management platform app, right? And apps big as that, right? There's all different things to really talk about. It's really full stack and really several different languages, going from like the common ones, JavaScript to Python, to the more specific ones such as Go or even Rust, right? So that's the overview here. We try to talk about all things tech, and at the end, we try to do a workshop where everyone, if someone here is having an issue with the code that they're working on, could share the screen and we could try to work on it together. Um, so that is my introduction, right? So, Alana, you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alana. I'm currently a full stack developer. I just completed an apprenticeship where I created an app using Ruby and Ruby on Rails. Right now, I'm actually going to intern as an iOS developer in like 2 weeks. And then I'll also be interning as an iOS developer in a summer program. So really happy to meet everyone.
Very, very good, very good. All right, Danielle.
Hi. I'm Danielle. I've been a kind of in adjacent to tech for a really long time. I worked for a long time as a designer, so a graphic designer, a web designer, and then having had some like skill level having done some work in HTML, CSS. That was also a service that I offered to a lot of clients on a lot of CMS platforms that were a little bit low code to no code. So right now I work as a developer for an agency that works a lot with Shopify. So that's a lot where my experience is, but I am looking to network and just, get more into the software engineering full stack route. So yeah.
All right, very good, very good. Yeah, so like that's UX, right? That I heard of, right? There's that CMS and there's Shopify, something that we're integrated with. I'm having a couple issues with Shopify, so we'll definitely hopefully we get to cover that today.
Oh yeah, and that is like my Liquid is my daily language or templating, I guess, language.
Yeah, no, because what I have to do, I have to yeah, because like there's Remix, there's Liquid, there's Hydrogen, and it's we have a situation where we'll get to it, but it's a subscription situation. Very well, and then
Okay.
Lena, you could go ahead and introduce yourself. Lena, can you hear me?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you did say my name. Then I thought, no, maybe you didn't. So thank you. Yes, my name is Lina. I am not a developer whatsoever. I am trying to actually develop out a dedicated AI chatbot to empower businesses to be able to navigate the complexities of expanding their business into Africa and Asia. So I'm trying to get, to learn how there is a possibility for me to be able to create this chatbot by myself with no technical capabilities at the moment, because I'm looking for a technical co-founder, and to use potentially something like BigQuery through Google or any of the other large language types of platforms, so that this AI chatbot can actually tap into that as well as other open sources. So if anyone's got any experience of developing an AI chatbot, I would really appreciate the help. Thank you.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, no, we'll definitely have to happen. Is that as on the AI is starting to grow. Well, I mean, it's been growing for a long time, right? It's just a matter of gaining access to the data, right? That will help business owners, right, and people with businesses navigate the markets of Africa and Asia, right? Do you have access? First things first, I want to ask, you have access to that large amount of data, right? When it comes to the laws, the rules, the regulations.
There is access to the open source data, which I'm assuming would come in through the APIs on those particular platforms. So there's about 3.3 billion access points or data points, data sources, open data sources on credible platforms. It's just sifting through that data and making sure that, I'm assuming, once a person actually types in a question in relation to them wanting to expand their business into Africa and Asia, it can pick up that information from those data sources and then bring it back into the chatbot. I'm assuming. I don't know. I'm open to allowing someone to sort of suggest to me how that could happen. But yeah, there is access to these data points.
Okay,
open source data.
There's something called GPT Builder, right? So if you have the Chat GPT premium subscription, right, there's GPT Builder where they take the Chat GPT and then they tailor it. You don't even need to know anything about coding. They could tailor it, and then so basically that data that you have, you just copy it and paste it, and it's just you copy paste, and then GPT Builder would build the Chat GPT that's specifically trained on all that data. But we have to take a closer look because you probably want something more customized. But that's the closest thing I could think of.
That would start off. Yeah, that sounds really good. Thank you.
And Crystal, right? Last but not least, right? Crystal, can you hear us? Crystal, Crystal, are you still able to?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry.
All right, very good.
Yep, I'm here.
All right, sounds good. All right, so yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yep. I actually been going to a lot of the meetups with We Build Black for a while before the pandemic. I'm not a developer. I'm just looking to work in the technical field. I'm actually currently looking to work in QA. So that's basically me. Just want to connect with other people who work in the technical field.
All right, sounds good. And I know you connected with us last week. Thanks for joining. Right, so yeah. I know that you're looking into Python, right? Because Python is popular with automation, web automation, and web scraping, right? There's also tools such as Selenium, Appium. I sent you a link, right? Test MU, right? The meetup. Did you get a chance to check them out?
Yeah. I actually registered for one of their meetups that's happening in August. So thank you for that.
Yeah. In addition, they should have a Slack group, right? They should
Oh,
have like a Slack group or a Discord group where you could join.
oh, I didn't see that. I guess I'll look into it. I didn't see that they had that. I went on their website, but it only gave me like the next meetup. I guess I'll look into it.
Can't. This one guy. All right, yeah, because I'm trying to remember. I know there's one guy I met, but he's actually younger. He's actually pretty young. He came there. He wanted to learn. I have his contact, but I'm trying to think because essentially what I'm thinking is that for the last meetup, because each of the organizations that went to the last meetup that just happened, I'm thinking that if you look at those organizations and try to see if they have a Slack, one of those channels might have a Slack. And then go from there. But I think in the meantime, while I think of that, I want to try to review my LinkedIn and see all the people I connected with, and hopefully I could send them your way as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send you. Do you want my contact if you find them?
Yeah. So let's try to hammer that out now, right? So there's the Slack, right? So I want to make sure that everyone gets to join from the Slack. And Danielle and Lena, how did you hear about us? Did you hear about us through like a group chat? Did you just find us on Meetup? Are you already in the We Built Black Slack channel? Or
Meetup for me.
okay, Meetup.
Yeah, it was a Google search for me.
Oh, okay, sounds good. All right.
Look at SEN.
All right, so I think what I want to do is that I want to make sure everyone has access to the Slack channel because we host these every week. So let me try to do one thing.
Yeah. If you find the contacts, you can send it to me on Slack. I'm on the Slack group now under Crystal Quest.
Okay, you're on the Slack too. Okay, yeah.
If you want my phone number, that's you can.
Yeah, do it on. Well, yeah, and then Tashin, can you hear us? And then if you can hear us, it's on the microphone button is at the bottom left. At the bottom left. Okay, it disappeared. All right, might have the internet connection. Let's begin. All right, so what we was talking about recently was so what we was talking about recently. I'll pull up my notes here. Where we left off at macbooks, right? But I think we just concluded that right, that so a lot of you were able to get Xcode installed. Danielle and so Danielle, have you ever worked with developed had to use Xcode?
No, not yet. No.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. Very well. All right. Very well. Yeah. I definitely want to. I think with that, I think one of the things I want to talk about now is the UX and the CMS, right? So, right, in application development, right, when we're building applications, right, usually there's something full stack. It's known as full stack. So, the common stack is the MERN stack, right? So it's MongoDB, right? That's for your database, right? React, okay? That's the front end application. All right. Then there's Express, right? That's the server essentially, right? And that's the server, and then MERN, and then the N stands for Node.js, right? But that's really the whole tech stack. But when it comes to CMS, right, such as WordPress, Wix, right? Am I correct? The CMS is WordPress and Wix, because last week we were talking about this, but I forgot the word. WordPress is and Wix, they're known as CMS, right?
I mean, there's a few, but yes, like WordPress, WordPress, Wix. I somewhat consider Shopify. Contentful is like a headless one. I guess Squarespace too, but yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, in those platforms, right? You don't get to. There's no server that you're dealing with. There's no database that you're dealing with. If there's a database, there's probably a table of users, of orders, and essentially you don't get to see the server side at all, right? So last week we were talking about, right, when it comes to features, right, and we didn't get too much into it, but when it comes to features of an application, right? If your application has a couple features, right? That you customize features, advanced features that you want to try to implement, then then you want to build the application, right? So using React, right? You want to actually code it out. However, if it's just a landing page, right, or if it's a simple store, right, which is what then you want to go about the CMS route. And then another thing too is like the design, right? I realize that, even now, and then I'm pretty sure you can get the insight on this, that like me as just a developer alone, right? I can't build a website anymore. I can't build a app anymore without going to without taking a course or curriculum on it, right? I think design has gotten so artful, and also accessibility. I would like to hear your take on accessibility, where to the point is like for my application that I built, I had to go on Envato Elements. Have you heard of Envato? Yeah, and then
I've used them.
Yeah, and then I just pull it from there because I know that anything I'm gonna make, then it's just not. I don't have the creativity. So what are your thoughts on, especially the accessibility side?
I mean, I do think, and I think the more that I kind of get into the software engineering community and kind of talking to more people, how much of a skill design is, which I may have taken a little bit for granted just being around designers. But no, like there is like a certain amount of like thought process that does take place. And I think there's tons of resources out there now for people. Like, and I know a lot of people like to use Canva as well. There's a lot of like templates within like Figma if you look in the kind of community tabs and stuff. Envato is like another really big one that I think a lot of people like to use, but I think part of it's paid. But yeah, for me, I think just also really focusing on accessibility as someone who is like somewhat visually impaired. It's really important, just like from a like empathetic standpoint. I think that's just kind of like how development goes anyway, but trying to like make sure that everyone has access to the same digital experience that others would. So I mean, this is kind of a broad topic. I could talk about it in like more detail, but that's just kind of my initial thoughts.
Yeah, no. So when I say when you want to try to make the app so that everyone can use it at the same time, right? I think one of the features like an app has to have is like an accessibility panel. I start to see in some of the I start to see in some applications, a few, that there's an accessibility panel like light mode, dark mode. I have that on our organization's main page, but not for this app that we're working on. And in addition to that, like you could change the font size as well as additional features, right? And then in the development world is that this is something you have to train. But when you make same with the frameworks, I'm not sure about React, but I use Angular, I use Flutter. When you mostly when you're going about making like the components or the widgets that people will interact with on the application, they're not like they're not like default. They don't have like the default accessibility settings like an ARIA label, or like when an image doesn't load, or if a person can't see images at all, right? There needs to be an ARIA label indicating that, okay, what's this image? What is this image? Like the word representation. If this is the avatar, right? That image needs to have that label, right? For a screen reader to pick up and say, okay, this is the image tag. And then same thing with headings, right? Same thing with headings. There's not too many. Essentially, right, all the additional properties, right, that will take that widget or component or HTML and make it fully accessible, right? It's not always it's something we have to build ourselves, right? So as I'm building the application, right, well, essentially what I need to do is that first I need to know about it, okay? I need to know what properties I need to add to this component, because once I make the component and try and go back, it might be a bit too late, especially if if that property is not uniform, such as an ARIA label, right? Then I need to account for it, right, when I'm building that certain widget before I put it into my application, and then instead of using what is already given to us by the software, by the framework that we're using, right, I'm gonna have to specifically use that widget, right? So when it comes to organization, right? So me with my experience, I know how to organize it all, but even putting that together, right? Sometimes it could be so overwhelming. Like the biggest step, right, is just learning, right? It's just knowing that okay, I need to X, Y, and Z needs to go. Do you feel that all the features that a widget or a component needs to be accessible? And then I think just for example's sake, do you want to use button or image as a reference to answer?
I guess image, that was really long-winded, so I'm not really like I missed the kind of like question there.
Yeah. So when it comes to like uh accessibility features, right?
Yes.
Do you think for like the developer building the app, they're one to
Okay.
one and they're easy to understand, or is there a little thought process that goes into some of the features?
I mean, I think there's a thought process that goes into the features, right? But I think that's with everything on the website. Like it's not, again, like if you're keeping like accessibility in mind, there's going to be a certain like thought process of like the user experience and also just like, again, different devices and stuff. Is there an easier way to do it? Again, a lot of the websites that I use, clients don't have like the scope for the project to do kind of all these additional kind of add-ons, the custom add-ons. So we use like other applications that offer those, but kind of like just for like a monthly subscription. But yeah, I don't know if they answer your question.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So with the projects you worked on, right there, or with the
Mhm.
CMSs, right? There there's plugins, right? That will go
Yeah.
into your application and just take care of all that for you.
Yeah, accessibility is like a really like popular one.
Right, right. Yeah. I think there could be a library out there. I haven't really heard of a library. And accessibility is not the only thing. When you say like devices, right? One I was like debugging the issue with our production application, and I'm trying to have the user sign in. So on some browsers it works, but other browsers there's just an error, unknown error. I don't know why. Take a closer look. I actually look at some of the browsers in the application on. I look at some I look at the application on different browsers on my computer, I find that the pop up is blocked. Something that, like mobile, you don't have too many cues what's going on when the application fails. So
Mhm.
right, so all this consideration, right, supporting as a developer, right, thinking about multiple devices, thinking that like the issues faced on multiple devices and the functionality, right. You might have situations where you're having a complex form, right? And and for us developers, just putting together that form, right? Depending on the framework that you're using, right? It just might take so much time that some things go out the window, right? But useful libraries, right? That I mean, plugins for you, right? Which would be useful libraries for us. Is it something that was like, hey, I want to try to be able to find a useful library that would just plug and play in my application, right? Flutter, what it likes to do at Flutter, I think even React with and then I think what's the term? I forget the term. I think it's known as provider. I'll try to look up it in a bit. But Flutter and React, what I noticed is that you could wrap your application in these providers, and then all the features that all those additional features that you need to keep their application modern, it's provided for you, such as internationalization, right? Um, so in Flutter, it's called I18N. Mine tongue twisted that, but essentially what that does is that your whole app, when a user wants to change a language, the the whole app is not stuck to one language. It essentially will change from English to Spanish, and then like even though like internationalization, right? That should be a feature that all applications have, right? By default, when you get into application development, this is not something that um, code is going to give you by default. It's essentially going to require you to write the code a different way and make sure the plugins are there in the first place before you can have a smooth integration with internationalization. So right? So there's that, right? And then why it's like so hard to try to get at these features sometimes is because it adds to the complexity. Like there's some necessities, right? Functionalities first, like you know, before anyone can use it, right? We have to just make sure that if I click on the button, this screen opens up, right? And depending on what needs to be done, right, that itself could be a complex action. That could be, and then in addition to that, sometimes even the software, the very framework or the very software that we use, right, there's bugs, right? Maybe you upgrade it to a new version, that new version has bugs. Sometimes for us developers, it's not always the developers that have the issue. It's it could be that the software that we're using, right, could limit us. Just like we were talking about the MacBook earlier, right? Certain MacBooks, like in the Mac community, after a certain amount of years, right, that laptop won't upgrade to the latest OS version, right? So that's just a limitation. So there's those limitations right there. So many limitations, and you know, when you get into the application development, along with deadlines, along with speaking to your stakeholders, right? There's those trade-offs you have to consider. So, but yeah, so those are the difficulties in application development. But when working with CMS, right? How many is it more often than not that you have a feature, a complex feature you want to implement, but you can't implement because the CMS is not going to allow you to?
I mean, thus far, I haven't really run into that issue.
Oh, say that again.
Thus far, I haven't run into an issue like that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Where it's limited. Yeah. Okay. Very well. Yeah. Because right. Because I use Shopify, right, for this is my first time using Shopify to set up payments, right, and then also if I say, hey, I could use Shopify to make an app because I know Shopify is based on React, right, then it's like, then it kind of makes things faster. We're using Angular because there's a library that we're working on with Angular, and we want to try to share things that way. But React is the route to go. So all right. So now with now with Shopify, like the specific issue that I'm having is with subscription. So basically, how our app works, okay, and then I think since you're interested in application development. Right, I'll just share my screen all together, and then I'll definitely show you what our application's doing. All right. All right, here we go, and then, all right, here we go. All right, that's okay. That's our screen. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so we go ahead and sign out. All right, so basically this is the video management platform, right, essentially. And then, while I'm looking at this, have you found a CMS that makes apps, like for mobile, or just web applications only?
I have only really looked at web applications. I haven't really looked at mobile yet.
Yeah, I know. I heard of Flutter Flow. That's like a CMS thing to make mobile applications, but yeah, I haven't looked at those either. It will be interesting to.
I used Flutter Flow before.
Flutter Flow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and when it comes, all right, yeah, tell us your experience, and then when it comes to features, right? What does is it limiting? Is it limiting in a sense, or?
So my experience with it, there was a lady who had a startup company, and she wanted a back-end developer to kind of help her build out the app, and she was using low-code, no-code tools to do so, and one of them was Flutterflow. And my experience with it I didn't like it. That's my overall impression of Flutterflow. Is it was very limiting because the tools are already there and it's kind of set in stone. And me being the type of person I am, I like the entire element of building and creating something from nothing. And so being able to put your own creative side into it, being able to have full control over what it is you're doing, is something I prefer. But if you're someone who, is looking for just like a quick way of building an app for your business, then low code and no code is probably the way to go. I just didn't prefer it as an aspiring full stack developer and video game developer. It just was very constricting, very limiting, and you kind of just had to use what tools they gave you. And there was very little room to kind of branch off and do things on your own. So that was my impression from using Flutterflow.
Yeah, looking at the website, I can see what you're saying. It's like almost like one of those like theme builders.
Yes, and I don't like that.
And I don't like this either.
Same reason I don't like Bootstrap.
Yeah, I was literally gonna say this looks like Bootstrap, in my opinion.
This application here or Flutterflow when using
Flutterflow.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Check. All right. I'll that. I like to see what Flutterflow looks like. I think like Flutterflow and Flutter, they're more like Bootstrap, right? And the React Native, right? They're more sharper. Okay, let me see their showcase, see what they're, okay. Yeah, I could see that boot. All right, so this feels more like iOS. iOS has a recent, but I haven't worked with Bootstrap, so these are like Bootstrap based. Yeah, I could see how the themes are same. Yeah, that's one of the things about, especially when I went on Dribble, also, some about the themes and the templates too, is like, I wish like everything didn't feel the same. Right, when I'm looking at some of the design template websites.
Yeah, and I think that was like a big symptom of like why people kind of like moved away. Even though a lot of people still use Bootstrap, but it just all looks the exact same.
Like in our apprenticeship, we had to use, we were taught to use Bootstrap because it saved on time. And because we had a limited amount of time, it was recommended that we go the Bootstrap way. The thing that I don't like about Bootstrap is like everyone's app looks the exact same. And like there is very little you can do beyond that. So if you want any specialized classes, if you want to build stuff on your own, the best way to go. I think people were saying that Tailwind was really good.
Yeah, I was going to say Tailwind makes things, you can make it more customized. It actually has like the ease of Bootstrap with the customization of like a more custom website.
Yes.
The only issue with Tailwind I find is that because it's all done through classes, technically, your code can get a little bit bloated, but there's like other things you can do using their like apply directives to like make sure that you're housing a specific set of classes to one parent class, and then you can put that into your HTML. But yeah, I prefer Tailwind way more to Bootstrap.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. There's more variety with it. Yeah, I can see a bit more variety. So if I look at this application here, right, that has like a newspaper, Bloomberg feel. This one, these two look kind of the same, but once again, right, this one's...
That can just be design, though. Like, it's not necessarily, like, the restriction of, like, the platform.
Say that again? The restriction of the
That can just be, like, what the designer chose to do. It's not really the restriction of the platform. I feel like Bootstrap is more the restriction of using Bootstrap versus Tailwind, where you can just... Some things are just on trend. Some people just like to have, like, the same things.
Yeah, I agree.
Right, so yeah, they keep it all one design. And so for our application, right, I use SCSS, right, and and it's interesting what you said about Tailwind, right? People like some people like I was speaking with people in like the last few meetups that we had, they prefer just not to have a CSS file altogether. They don't want to get into that, like even though that HTML turns into like it just gets long and messy like the way it does. It's just the fact that they don't have a CSS file that even though that they know that all they're dealing with is just one line instead of okay, I have to deal with the CSS file and I have to use margin, flexbox, padding, all that good stuff. So so there's that. So I use SCSS and we could just get into that if I go to my common. And essentially, it's not the same solution as in Tailwind, but essentially what I have is these mixins, right? So SCSS.
Yeah, so that's essentially what like their directives are, is like mixins.
Okay. Okay, yeah. So essentially, right? Okay, and then you just okay, and then you
Yeah,
just build
it's
it.
more streamed down mixins, I guess, because mixins you're still kind of adding the specific properties and values, whereas in Tailwind you're just saying, okay, whatever you have for this, like maybe like margin 10, and it adds like a margin of like 10 pixels around, it'll put that in. But they're very similar to mixins.
Yeah, I definitely want to take my time and learn Tailwind. It sounds very promising because it could also
It
be a
is
short.
extremely promising. You'll love it when you start using it.
Yeah, yeah, I just yeah, because no, because what it sounds like, it sounds like you could just have one class, like you could just have a certain element, set of elements,
Hmm.
right? And then instead
Hmm.
of having like several classes, you just have that one like directive class that's just going to style
Yeah,
everything.
you would have the one directive class, and it's like a whole bunch of keywords. So it's just like, okay, margin 10, font large, even. And then you would just apply that one class to your element, and it makes life so much easier. Once you start using it, you'll like be like, okay, like CSS what or SCSS what? Like, no, nothing.
Oh, okay. Wait, and okay. So now I'm seeing it better. Can now I want to see if will can it just be so it's you so far what I see is one class for one element. Can it be one class for a group of elements too? Does it go that far too?
Hmm.
Okay. I gotta take some time. I gotta take some time. The thing with
Yeah,
this,
I was just, and there's like, for me, I think like a while ago, I looked at like, honestly, some YouTube videos just about it and just seeing like what I could do with it. And I started playing with it myself, and I was like, oh wow, this is actually like really powerful. And I see like this why it's like a requirement for a lot of jobs, or why a lot of like companies are using it, because it just makes life so much easier, but you get the custom look of a custom website. And again, for me, like that's really important as like having come from design.
yeah, because like building that out your own, like it's gonna take too long trying to build out some of the features.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
so
writing out each property and everything, like, it makes things much faster. So I know you used it for the SCSS for this, but for your next project, I would highly recommend just like testing it out.
yeah, because this no, we use JavaScript to do this, and then just to like
Oh,
because JavaScript right is more performant, is like takes up more memory than CSS. If you could do it in CSS, you should do it in CSS, right? Than the JavaScript. So now, because I know on Webflow, we got this design from Webflow. So now
mm,
it's like if Tailwind could already do this, that just saved me like a day. So this like took me like a week to do about. So I
mm.
could just done this in like 1 minute. So all right, we'll have to. Yeah, I'm gonna have to take a course. Definitely after this project, it's a big project, right? We're going to make this is the web app, then we have the mobile app, then we're going to have the iPhone app, and once everything that's launched, then yeah, we're definitely going to want to look. I think one of the biggest things, right, when it comes to application, I think I mentioned this all last week, is that I want to be able to plan. It's a lesson more to me than to you. I'm pretty sure you already know this, Daniel, but to me is planning, right? So like
Yeah.
last week I was talking about the API side of things where I should have looked deeply into Shopify before and seen, because the only reason why this app is like we're still developing is because of the subscription. Like we sent a report to Shopify like, hey, what's going on with their subscriptions? And they've been putting us in a circle for about 5 months. So without sending out subscriptions, because without subscriptions we can't really quota, and we could write the code to quota people, but we rather just have the subscriptions there first, and work on other features. But in terms of like design, right, you also want to be able to like, all right, use this library, like test it out, see if like for all the features you need, if the library could do it, then integrate. Planning before, because um, yeah, because like with our CSS, one thing we've done is that in a previous project, all right, I want to go to my fonts. Let's go to fonts.scss. Essentially, what we've had was that these words, okay, so I have to do it for the next project. So you see how these are prefixed with WML, like the logos of our company.
Hmm.
So essentially, we didn't do it for all of this. Like, we're safe now because we're not using the library. But when we integrate, right, this is one thing we want to be able to do. We want to be able to prefix everything so that we don't have any name collision once we integrate a library. And even as you can imagine, like a third-party tool has a library, right? And they just might use the same variable, and then that might cause issues, right? So we also want to consider that, right? Add some accessibility, and I think one thing even to do is that when we're working on a new project, right? There's an extension called generate markdown structure, and we'll see what this essentially does, right? So basically, it's going to go through this whole project, and now, right, it tells us all the folders and files in this project. So when we're ready to go on to the next project, okay, then we have like a tree map view of our whole project, and we say, okay, this is like, so if you kind of look at these like pages, like probably for our next project we have to remove all these, or something like this legal doc, right? This is used to generate terms of service and privacy policy. We might have to keep it or modify it. Probably keep it and then modify it for the new accessibility features we learned. Modify it to leverage Tailwind and other things let go. So, very important, to plan. And then, thanks for saying like, hey, try to research these things, right? And try to research Tailwind along with additional things. Try to take some courses. That's some of the things I want to do, even before trying to go at it again. And even with AI, because as you're writing application code, most of the things that we write is repeatable.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so instead of writing that out ourselves, it's repeatable, but it's difficult. Like some things there you can repeat, but they're difficult, right? So instead of writing it out ourselves, why don't we try to use AI? And writing test cases is a good use case. Test cases. If there's like Jest, there's Jasmine, PyTest, and then Selenium, and all those tools, right? We want to be able to. I definitely want to be able to like stop. So definitely this project, like more and more, I wanted to work on a second project, but as further and further I get into this project, more and more it's just like, all right, I gotta stop. Huge planning before taking on another project. So it's a lot of insight. So but yeah, very well.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you run by me what you said about developing this AI chatbot so I can write it down because I've got to go soon?
Oh, you gotta go. All right, we'll stop. So essentially, what you want to do, is let's open up the new window. Everyone see the new ChatGPT, correct?
Yes, thank you.
All right, so for ChatGPT, essentially, you want to do is if you have the premium, so you go here, export GPT. All right, so before anything, you want to try to see if the GPT that you're looking for is already built, right? So business in Asia. So let's say business in Asia, right? So market explorer. So this is economics. So,
something like company expansion.
Company expansion.
Navigating company expansion into Africa and Asia.
Yeah. Okay. Navigating company expansion into.
But I can do this as well.
Right. So we find no results. So sometimes it's
So at this particular stage, we're looking for something that already exists, and if it does, what happens then? Or if it doesn't, what happens then?
You hit create.
Uh-huh.
All right, and then you start to put your data here, and then that'll be your own. So basically, you call it expanding and Asia, right? Business into Africa and Asia, right? And then wherever your data is, all right, then you start to post it here.
So what if the data is, or data, as you say in America, is in a different, an outsourced area, like an API or whatever, that needs to be,
okay.
I guess.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, so basically you have to know how to query from the API to, so essentially, right, you would have to know how to query from the API to pull that information.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
before you could.
And does the same sort of principle happen if I was to create something using BigQuery on, what do you call it? Google Gemini.
Say that again.
Would the same sort of process happen to do it on Google Gemini?
Oh, okay. Oh, I wouldn't know. I haven't signed up for Google Gemini, but I suppose. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I suppose.
Okay, that was helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, very well. Very well. Thank you.